way around the NFL. Interesting people saying interesting things yesterday. We have a new feature. We're going to call it Talk to Me. And the person we all wanted to talk to or hear from yesterday was Caleb Williams in Chicago, who addressed the excerpt from Seth Wickersham's book about his feelings and his father's feelings for the Bears related to the pre-draft process. So, Caleb, talk to me.
This whole storm that happened, it wasn't something that, we wanted to happen at this point. We're focused on the present. We're focused on now. We're focused on, trying to get this ship moving in the right direction. And I think so far that's what we've been doing. But for this to come out, it's been a distraction. I wanted to come here and, be the guy and be a part and be a reason on why, Chicago Bears turn this thing around. That's why I was selected number one. And so, that's what we're here to do.
Okay, so he had a lot to say yesterday. Jeff is up with us, D. Wood, but Michael, no one is more intimately connected in Chicago than you are. Some of the principals involved here. What is your big picture take right now as they go forward and try to put that part of it behind them?
I'm glad Caleb came out and did this. I wish it had been for selfish reasons. Somebody who's been a fan of this franchise for 60 years. I wish it happened a little earlier, but I understand he's got a lot of things on his plate, including getting used to new teammates and a new coach and trying to get better this year. Look, Caleb Williams went to my son goes to Caleb Williams High School, Gonzaga High School in Washington, D.C. I know Caleb and I know his dad, and I am completely biased in their favor, so let me declare that. This was not a story by the time we got to the draft. It was earlier, but there's so much time between the end of the college football season and the draft. There's 6 months. Carl Williams, Caleb's dad, did exactly what a father's supposed to do. He advocated for his son with a franchise he knows nothing about, they know nothing about, they have no relationship with those people. And he did his due diligence. And Caleb, I think, used that phrase at some point. That's exactly what a father should do. So what I would do if it was my son. And by the way, Caleb, once they met and had multiple meetings with the Bears, particularly Kevin Warren, the president, that was done. By the time we got to the draft, he became a Chicago Bear. All of that examination was done. So now we move on. Was there drama? There was never any drama. I don't know how many people knew about it in January, February, March, before we got to the draft. And then once we got to the draft, they'd had all these meetings. It seemed to be a kumbaya situation. Caleb understands. You know this. You live there. You work there. You cover the team.
Yep.
If you go to Chicago and you are even decent at quarterback, it's your town for the rest of your life. Caleb Williams is a bright man. He's not stupid. He understands that.
Let me get Jeff Darlington in here. Jeff, how about it?
Well, listen, if this is a storm, if this is a distraction, it is at no fault of Caleb Williams. I quite frankly don't think that he needs to address it. It's fine that he did, and he did so with a level of maturity that's actually very endearing. But this is the only industry in the world where we are expected for the best employee to go to the worst company and then stand up there and say, wow, it's great to be here. I mean, Caleb Williams, we're talking about labor market restriction. Caleb Williams is expected to stand up there and say, yes, I can't wait to play for the worst. And in this case, perhaps it's a little different because the Bears were picking first because of a trade, but generally speaking, that's the case. And by the way, he was justified for not just the decades before him, but the months that followed. It was malpractice the way that they guided Caleb Williams. So you know what? I applaud him for standing up there and speaking from a level of maturity that, quite frankly, the questions didn't even deserve, Greeny.
What do you think, T. Wood?
I don't even know why this is even a story. Like, to be honest with you, he had every right to feel this way.
Yes.
Look at the way the Chicago Bears have handled the quarterback situation forever.
And especially the last decade, especially Trubisky and then Fields.
Greeny, we've been on the show many times. How many times have you said, like, how the Bears routinely screw it up where they have a coach on the hot seat, but let's draft the quarterback. Then the coach gets fired, brings in a new guy, and the quarterback is constantly in flux. We're talking about the storied Chicago Bears, one of the oldest teams in the league, who has never had a 4,000-yard pass.
Right.
That is absolutely crazy.
Never even have a Pro Bowl quarterback. It's happened, I don't know that it's happened more than twice in my lifetime. Was Jim McMahon ever a Pro Bowl? I don't think he made the Pro Bowl.
Maybe a year.
I don't know that he did.
There, he was hurt a lot.
The fact that Jay Cutler actually might have been a Pro Bowl quarterback is sort of criminal. But Jeff's so right. This is just this was unimportant. By the time they did their due diligence, which of course you would do, who among us, to your point, would go anywhere without saying, wait a minute, let me examine this. I got some real questions here because you've had these failures over time. Why wouldn't a father do that in the instance of a 21-year-old or 22-year-old son?
Right.
And why wouldn't the player himself do that going into this environment, knowing what's going to be expected? And you got the hopes and dreams. Look, our fan base is not as nuts as some others, okay? You don't hear routinely booing, and you don't face the same sort of criticism you get, sorry, I-95, on the corridor for New England down to New York, down to Philly. You don't get that. But there are still expectations, and I've never, Greeny, never seen the expectations going into seasons what they've been the last two since the 85 and 86 and 87 Bears of Mike Ditka and Walter Payton.
We'll see. They had gotten everything wrong around him when he was a rookie. They seem to have gotten a lot of it fixed or right. Now we'll see where it goes from here.
Innings and allowed no more than one run.
So he was good, and so are the NFL FPI rankings released today from ESPN Analytics. And no real surprise that according to the numbers, there are 5 expected dominant teams: Eagles, Chiefs, Ravens, Lions, and Bills. However, Christine, here's the one. Commanders are 6th, just behind those 5 after their run to the NFC Championship. I would promise you they weren't 6th coming into the year this year, last year.
We welcome in our NFL analyst, Peter Schrager. So some usual suspects, right, in the top 5. Is there a team that should be in the top tier? And if so, who would you take out?
I respect the Football Power Index rankings. I respect our ESPN analytics, but I was there with my eyes on the field watching in Detroit as the Washington Commanders wiped the floor with the Detroit Lions last year in the playoffs. And in the offseason, whereas the Commanders added a ton of talent and kept their entire coaching staff, the Lions lost a lot of key pieces, not only to their team on the field, but the Lions also lost a guy named Ben Johnson and a guy named Aaron Glenn. If I'm the Commanders and I'm looking at this and I'm looking at the rankings and saying, well, what else could we have possibly done? Not either in that playoff game, but in the offseason, adding Deebo Samuel, adding Laramie Tunsil, and having one of the best drafts in football. If I'm a Commanders fan, a Commanders player, or if I'm Dan Quinn who loves to motivate his guys, I'm showing him this list and saying, I guess the John Morton-led offense with Jared Goff is still superior to us, even though we beat them and got better this offseason. Commanders over Lions, that would be my take.
See, hook, line, and sinker. We put the rankings out so we elicit a reaction, and Schrager fell right for it. Already has a problem with it. Good for you, Schrager. Hey, look, we know OTAs are the way across the league for most teams. That would include the Dolphins. What are you keeping an eye on in